Well, that's our show for tonight. We're glad that you guys could join us. LOL.
We're done.
Oh my God.
You didn't, did you?
I did.
We did. Welcome everybody to Rad Pod and Chill. We like to think of this as our weekly sort of live at the bar chillin' episode, recappy cap of our previous episode where we're a little bit more serious. I'm Heidi Kuda. I'm here with Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity. Super glad to see you guys. Super excited about the things that I know I want to talk about today. Just to FYI, I was listening to this German cabaret artist who does kind of a 1930s Berlin style show. She's amazing. And there's a song she has that in German, in English, it translates to everybody swindles. And it's all like mom swindles, dad swindles, the dog swindles, grandpa swindles, like everybody swindles. And I don't know if the song was written in the 30s, but I was thinking about that, how we live in a time where so many people are backing, the autocrats because they're just cheats and they're corrupt in their own worlds. But today there was a little bit of breaking news about somebody who swindled, who actually got convicted. And can we talk a little bit about that? Because I like to think that there is going to be a reversal of this trend of amoral people hiding their corruption, with the Bible and whatever else. But let's talk about the conviction today. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about.
So let me, if I may.
Yes.
So there are two ways of looking at what happened to Mr. Sam Bankman-Fried, who was convicted. Fully convicted of very complicated fraud involving all kinds of crazy new legal theories, etc., because we were dealing with cryptocurrency. Within a year of him getting caught, motherfucker's going to prison for a really long time. Now, compare and contrast when you fuck with rich people's money, which is what Sam Bankman-Fried was really guilty of. It's, bam, bam, justice. The wheels of justice may grind slowly, but not that slowly, motherfucker. Right?
Yes.
But over here, when the victim was not rich people's bank accounts, but the goddamn democracy.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, man. Whatever, dude. Get those assholes who went in there and made a mess. Get them. That fucking drag your feet for 2 fucking years and don't do anything. In the meantime, this little fucking mushroom hobbit-looking motherfucker, it has the entire weight of the whole justice system marching on his ass because he's Mr. Madoff all over again.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Right. There are more important things than that little motherfucker. Yes, he swindled $14 billion out of people who should not have been given Sam Bankman-Fried penny number one, first of all.
Right.
But I get that he committed a crime, and that's fucking great. But I'm not, and it's just me because I'm that guy. But I cannot get much more than a simple. I see you, high five. Calm down. Than a little giggle out of this thing. All right, now you may go.
Yeah.
I would just like to point out to everyone, ripping off rich people you go to prison in a year. Try to overthrow your country, 3+ years counting, and you're fine.
Well,
So,
for some people,
That's what I just
got,
said.
yeah,
well,
some
yeah,
people.
not for the poor people.
Well, and
Poor
also
people are
not for
going to
the Oath
prison.
Keepers and not for the Proud Boys, and those guys got
Well,
some decent
that's because they're
sentences.
the poors.
The poors, yeah, man.
All right.
That's
Hey, you
Shannon's
know who
life.
else got ripped off by Sam Bankman-Fried?
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
Too
Okay, that
soon?
reminds
Too
me of
soon?
something. I need to talk about this for
Oh,
a second. Can we talk about this for a second?
Yeah.
So, Sam Bankman-Fried, the reason why he had $14 billion is because he made some money and then signed up with a bunch of billionaires in this psyop, and nothing short of that, called long-termism.
Right.
Long-termism is related to something else called effective altruism, but here's the basic idea. Rich anarcho-capitalist psychopaths are so much smarter than all of us that they should get as rich as possible, as fast as possible, so that they can make all the decisions for us,
Yeah.
including things that are like tough love. You know, when millions of people die because of their fucking whack job ideas or whatever, because their eugenics 4chan bullshit is suddenly coming to life, right? That's that is what we're dealing with here. So the reason why this motherfucker felt like Sam Bankman-Fried, Hobbit, mushroom motherfucker, could do more good with $14 billion than anybody else in the world is because he's in a rich white guy cult that was founded in part by guess fucking who? Elon Musk. Elon Musk and Sam Bankman-Fried are tied at the fucking hip, which is why Elon Musk goes out of his way all the time to be like, oh, I don't like Sam Bankman. Sam Bankman-Fried was his pet rock that he grew from a fucking sick mushroom into a $14 billion hole for all of Elon Musk's friends who gave him money. And that's why that motherfucker is in prison and why Mike Flynn is out here psyoping the United States of America. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
So you're saying that Sam was Elon Musk's chia pet?
That is an excellent, indeed.
Well,
because now anyone who had chia pets knows they don't last forever. It feels like they're gonna, and you can just keep doing it, but they eventually dry up. All the little sprouts, they shrivel up, and it's very sort of depressing. And you just want to make sure it's away before that process happens.
I am nevertheless grateful that a swindler actually got his comeuppance. And speaking of swindlers, and speaking of Elon Musk, today a report that I wrote for Byline Supplement had some stellar quotes from our friends Michael McKay, Dr. Charles Creel, Wes Clark Jr., a few others. Because I think it's really important that we learn how to go on a messaging counteroffensive against unreality. So this whole article kind of unmusked 3. I've been doing a whole series focusing on what has been happening in the diabolical plot to destroy Twitter's communication, but also to create fascist unreality. And I was reading the CEO of Twitter's thread, and I refuse to call it X because X is a cherished punk band and I'm just not going to do it. But I was reading a thread by the CEO of Twitter, who, according to reports, gets paid $6 million annually, allegedly Catholic, allegedly a mother of 2. And the thread was all unreality. It was a reality bending minefield. And then it was followed up with all of these blue check atta girls. And propaganda affects your mind even when you know it's propaganda. Okay. It's very, very hard. And so Ruth Ben-Ghiat reminded me to counter message. So I counter message with a quote tweet that said Goebbels and Prada. And I said that because I quote tweeted her referring to the Nazi minister of propaganda, not saying that's who she is, but she's using propaganda, but she's doing it in a more elegant form. And I felt great relief because we have to, as Jim and Hi-Fi know and have been excelling at for many years, we have to go on a counter messaging offensive to punch through the unreality and the fakeness. And when the PM of the UK, is celebrating the big coup of getting Elon Musk to go on his, AI safety summit, it's like, okay, so I've got great quotes about it. I hope people look at the article, but it's like literally this is just propaganda. As Dr. Charles Creel said, what, they couldn't get Trump to join them too? Why not have all three of them up there? It's distorting reality to have to think that there's any credibility there. And gentlemen, I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
I mean, I think the greatest quote about Twitter, and I hesitate to say this about Hi-Fi because it's a compliment. The best quote ever is it's a $44 billion PSYOPs cannon. That's what it's for. It is. I would add the word Nazi in front of PSYOPs, or Nazi Kremlin if you want to be very specific about what it's trying to do. But he's got 162 million followers. Guess what? 162 million people did not hit the follow button. He's been manipulating the entire system all day today. In my fucking Twitter feed, I was probably still there. I had to look at hashtag detrans, which is all about detransitioning, right? Which is the conversion therapy sponsored by, guess who? PragerU, the fucking literal fascist kids college that pretends to be some kind of educational institution and is
funded by the fossil fuel fracking industry.
Fossil fuel funded, like, just absolute fascist shit show, right? And that's trending all fucking day. Even in the worst Jack Dorsey days, right? He had normies on his staff, which would be like, but today, like, not only, I'm sure he got like a deal, if not free, because Elmo wants that. He wants people to be bigoted. He wants to divide people. He wants to separate white cis men, especially with money, from everybody else. That is his entire bark. And if it was just a weird incel with $250 billion, that would be one thing. But he has hitched his wagon to a movement and a network of propaganda and PSYOPs veterans that is absolutely, taking advantage of the fact that he bought himself the largest megaphone, as far as I can tell, in history. It's got 160 million followers. So that's my reaction.
I just need to remind everyone in the audience about the guy who runs PragerU. That's this fucking guy, and he is beyond ridiculous. Like, why would people listen to him? Schools are educating children with bullshit that dude puts out. How?
And they are, by the way. Don't skip over they are doing that.
Well, we are, I interviewed Ann Nelson for an upcoming story. And of course, you guys know she wrote Shadow Network and has done such incredible work. She just did a really important piece for the Washington Spectator in relation to Mike Johnson. And what she just reminds us is that this is a multi-front. We are being hit on multi-fronts. And I would say PragerU is a good example of that. But Jim, when you talk about propaganda, I just want to bring up our previous guest, Jack Bryan, Because on a day when I was despairing about counter messaging and how we effectively go up against the dullness of propaganda, the simplicity, the ugliness, the onslaught of the repetition. Jack was just like, I think that I think it's getting played out. I think he believes it's being so overused, just the repetition and the simple catchphrase BS, that he believes that there will be a renaissance of intellectual curiosity and a desire to know more and a desire to embrace truth. And I, on the one hand, the cynical side of me is like, isn't it pretty to think so? On the other hand, the optimistic side of me says it has to be so. And I don't know what will win, but I'd like to think that when you look at how people have been voting in the last year, they are voting past the dullness of the propaganda and the dullness of the lies in the majority across party lines. They're showing that there is, an awareness that our democracy is at stake. So I'd like to temper, because I just feel like if you don't know that Elon Musk is a fraud by now, you're not paying attention. If you haven't figured that out, they can have all the, Twitter spaces they want, but it's like, that dude is a fraud perpetuated on, our country for sure, and is a global threat. It seems very obvious to me, but I don't know.
So you mentioned Mike Johnson. So if you would permit me for a second. Mike Johnson, you also mentioned Ann Nelson, who has done some of the most formative work on the Council for National Policy. Council for National Policy was founded and run by Dominionists. Seven Mountain Dominionism is one of the most extreme militant forms of Christianity that declares in its mandate, and it's a mandate of people who follow it, that America is to be a Christian nation, and ultimately the world is to be a Christian globe, because they see their job, and this is very important, to accelerate the end times, to put all of the pieces in place so that the fucking mythology from a book that would, from not even a book, from fan fiction, from another book that has been reinterpreted by the oil and gas industry, speaking of, to create an apocalyptic mindset to regenerate ancient shit. So I'm going to be cynical for a second. Forgive me.
It's okay.
There's a book. It's called the Jewish Torah. Came from fucking the ground or some shit. People found it and they were like, whoa, this is cool. They like it, and they made a religion out of it. And then a bunch of other people created other religions out of it by adding shit to it. And that fan fiction is the basis of 2,000 years of death, violence, murder, genocide. I, as anyone who's followed me at all knows, I'm an atheist, but I'm also trying to be very respectful of people's beliefs. I have no problem with people's beliefs until and unless they involve the promotion and actual execution of bigotry, theocracy, or fucking genocide. Right? I mean, that's what all of these myths are about. They are about entire groups of people eliminating other entire groups of people. The end state, the goal, the happiest day of their life, the good news they call it, is when people who happen to believe what Mike Johnson believes will get teleported into the fucking sky, and everybody else including the Jews that they claim to support so hard, will die in a fire. That is who is 2 heartbeats from the presidency. If and I don't mean to be too dark, but I really hope the fucking Secret Service is paying a lot of attention right now, because there are a lot of very, very powerful people who would love to see Mike Johnson in the fucking presidency.
And yet,
and it's not it is not past these people. That's what they're doing right now. They are trying to literally overthrow the government of the United States in favor of biblical Christianity. Now, I will land my plane. I want everybody to learn, and you can do this, I promise. First 10 words, Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. It's simple. It's the first 10 words for a reason. And it's not because the founders weren't Christians or hated religion or any of that shit, but they knew that religion is used to murder people if it's not checked, if it's not controlled, if it doesn't stay out of the governing of your life. They knew that. And that's why the First Amendment, the first 10 words, are the Establishment Clause, meaning Mike Johnson can't do what he is brainwashed to do. And that is about the most dangerous national security thing I can imagine. He's in the Gang of 8. He gets all the presidential reports. It's catastrophically dangerous, not to mention just a complete collapse of our political system.
Well, I like what you said about how somebody needs to walk around with a sandwich board with those 10 words wherever he goes so they can make sure he sees them. I also do believe, with the weird shit that's coming out about him, that he might be 3 Scaramucci's away from being ousted. I hope so. I hope if the Fourth Estate still has a pulse.
What's up with the bank account thing?
Well, there's a lot of things. Yeah, Jim?
I did a poll of how many Scaramucci's it would be. And the over-under seems to be 3 or 4. So, but my followers are the best followers. Just saying.
Big if true. I'm going to quote you, Jim. We need to stop pretending this is just MAGA being silly cult members. This is part of an intentional global resurgence of extreme religious ideology, intentionally stoked through real-world atrocities by our enemies. They want a conflagration in Israel because it fits their mythology, keeps them all in power. That great Voltaire quote, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. But here's my favorite part. I'm tired of reporting on the creation of the Fourth Reich through psychological warfare in real time while the media keeps misreporting it as politics. They keep misreporting it as politics. You said, was it a year? I don't know how long ago. Was it a year or 2 years ago that the second insurrection, which must have been going on 2 years. It was the midterms. You said the second insurrection, which is the GOP control of Congress, is worse than the first. We are seeing this in real time. And I don't think anybody who's paying attention underestimates the dangers, but I also think that we have to focus on ways out. And that means
probably they do underestimate the dangers because our feckless fucking media. I mean, some of the Washington Post reporting
was
super. I mean, it was like, yeah, Hitler has some extreme ideas, but he was also a fantastic painter.
Yeah.
Like, dude,
I saw that.
Look, man, come on.
Yeah. Come on, man. Come on.
His entire background, all of the things he has done, are all about replacing the government of the United States with biblical Christianity, apocalyptic, in the project to take us to Armageddon. Now, does this really seem like a guy who should be third in line to the fucking presidency? And by the way, and this is important, what is the first goddamn thing he did? He did two things. He he took Ukraine funding out of the spending bill, and then offset the funding to Israel with IRS cuts. Now, which brings up what was brought up a second ago, which is that the motherfucker doesn't exist in the financial system.
Yeah.
He does not exist. He's got a mortgage, and that's it. He's got no bank accounts. He's got no credit cards. He's got jack fucking shit. How does that happen? How does a man in that position with those contacts, now in with this power, end up with zip? Nothing. It's like this guy was grown in a fucking lab to do this shit, right? And they're like, we're going to make a clean one. We're going to build it from scratch and make it cute, and we're going to mold it and turn it into whatever the
Speaking
fuck
of cleaning, you know, they scrubbed all of his podcasts from the internet. They scrubbed a bunch of articles that they had posted. Like, what is going on with this guy? Because it reeks. It stinks to high heaven.
He's trying to hide everything about himself because everything about him is hate.
Yeah.
He has a covenant marriage, which means his wife is like legally his handmaid. So, as people may recall, Amy Coney Barrett is from a bizarre ass fucking charismatic cult that has literal fucking handmaids in it, right? And this dude is just as far off. I'm talking about in its treatment of women. The dude is in fucking Neanderthal. He believes women literally should be like legally subservient to men. All of that. He says this out loud with his fucking mouth. And that's why they're erasing all this stuff, is because he's a lunatic.
And thank God that people on the interwebs were able to retrieve his podcast, and it's starting to leak out. They know about
I love how they try to hide things on the internet.
I know. Good luck. We're in a post-privacy world. Good luck with that. Couldn't hide the 14-year-old son that he didn't adopt, too much paperwork, allegedly. So when we talk about people like this, we're talking about a diabolical super plot that's waged on many fronts, circumventing the will of the people. We don't want this stuff. Two-thirds plus of the people in this country do not want this stuff. And what Ann Nelson was telling me, that what this Koch cadre funded, fossil fuel funded, Russian, oligarch funded, Christian nationalism movement is in large part finding the weak spots in our democracy. And one of the weakest spots, according to Ann Nelson, is the internet. And nobody is defending us there. We do this work screaming week after week, help. But I just want to say, a little country like Moldova made the decision to turn off 31 platforms in their country that was spewing and associated with Russian propaganda. Moldova does not want their democracy overthrown by Russia. They don't want the Russian infection. They are hip to what's happening. And so they shut down 31 sites. I ask our leaders in our country, we know that Facebook and Twitter are marching us toward authoritarianism, and doing it where we have absolutely nobody defending us, and we're doing nothing. We're doing nothing. We're not even having the conversation about what we should do. Do we break it up? Does it become a public utility? What do we do? At least, Elon Musk is being sued by our government, but it's just not enough, and it's not fast enough.
Yeah, he's also their largest contractor.
I understand.
So that is part of the problem. Look, to me, and the reason why I squawk about specific things like psychological warfare and Russia and Christo-fascism all the time is because a small country like Moldavia with the right leadership
Moldova,
can do
yes.
that.
Moldova.
Yes, yes,
Shut up.
yes.
Can do that. Whereas
Yes.
the United States now, absolutely riddled and corrupt with fucking Russians, could never pass something like that, right? Because all of a sudden, it's free speech. Well, I've said this before, I'm going to say it one more time. When rich fascists talk about free speech, here's what they mean. I want the right to brainwash you.
Yeah.
That's what that means. That's what they are. That's the whole game, right? So here in a just briefly, how to connect these things, right? Religion, people's faith, beliefs, whatever you want to call it, right? To the extent it involves supernatural forces, that is magical thinking, right? And I don't mean that pejoratively. Magic can be a wonderful thing, right? But it is a separation of your five senses from what you think. It's inserting a step where somebody else has the power over what you think, right? Now, that may be something people want for some reason, and that's okay. But that's not what we're talking about here. Talking about somebody entering through that faith, that hole, sort of, in your logical defense, right? In your rational thought, entering through a place where they know that you believe stuff that if left alone, you probably wouldn't believe, right? I think we could agree on that. So it's very important, I think, for everyone to understand how this attack, right? How this war on us is abusing and misusing religion, which I fundamentally disagree with, but is also a fact of humanity. I don't mind what people believe, but it is being abused. Your faith in Jesus, your faith in Muhammad, your faith in Yahweh, your faith in whatever you believe is being weaponized and abused by people who want to take your shit and or murder you because they don't think you're as good as they are. And to me, all of this shit is just about, because what did it take in Moldova, right? It took enough people in the country being like, wait a second, we don't want the fucking Russians like attacking us anymore. Can you do something about it, right? We don't have that here because we don't have that understanding. We've been prevented from it. The government refuses to say it, and so does the press. And that's what needs to change. And thank you for coming to my second or third.
What I love about Moldova, hold on, hi-fi, because we're gonna get to Paul Conroy in a minute. What I love about Moldova is they did that despite, I learned about what was happening there because of Zarina Zabrisky's reporting. She happened to be in that country when she happened to see a Potemkin Tatushki mob. Older women bust in to pretend that they were pro-Russian and wanted pro-Russian leadership, and then bust out, told not to talk to the press, people from the country being paid like $10 to show up. And what happened is that Russia had given the country energy at a reduced rate, and when they didn't get their way, they jacked it up to the point where Moldova couldn't afford it and had to buy energy, I believe, from Finland, which was much more expensive. So people were like, keep the lights on or get a loaf of bread. That's the kind of thing that was happening. Despite the pain, Russia intentionally caused that country, the economic pain and the energy pain. The people are fighting back. So I give them so much respect. And hi-fi, this is probably a really good place for us to show some clips from episode 72. We interviewed an award-winning photojournalist and filmmaker, Paul Conroy. He's now covering his 19th war. He's a complete and total, he's a lovely human being and a badass. And let's see one of those clips. I just revisited a thread by the author of On Tyranny and the Road to Unfreedom, Tim Snyder, who's got an incredible series called The Making of Modern Ukraine. And in it, it talks about not only how the FBI, members of our own FBI in 2016 were working for the Russians, but really, quite frankly, how successful the information war has been. And one of the things that I marveled at when Zarina was staying with me is that she couldn't wait to get back to Ukraine. And she's like, she explained it to me because here we're a little confused still about what's really going on. And she said she goes to Ukraine, nobody's confused about what's going on. And can you say a few words about the information war? And then I've got one other quick question.
Yeah, I mean, there's very, very, very clear clarity of vision here in Ukraine. You know, there is no listening to what pours en masse from the Kremlin. It is the Russian machine. And as I've said many years ago, when Syria was happening, the propagandists who spread the misinformation, they don't have any burden of proof. There is no burden of proof exists for them. All they have to do is muddy the waters, and they do that by pumping out information till people just do not. It's not that people aren't stupid, people aren't idiots. It's just that when there's so much information being pumped into the water with no burden of proof, that people just start going, what's true? And people I know about have asked the same about the wars in Syria and Libya. You know, the information war. The goal is to not create an alternative story that sticks. It doesn't really, as long as it confuses people and gets people to almost turn off, because it's so hard to understand and find your way through this minefield.
Solid. No.
He would know.
A plus.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, like the alternate reality he's talking about is, you know, what we've been talking about for 45 minutes now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's the thing that, you know, for me, I just need people to get, right? Like, and why his interview is particularly important, because he's where this is going, guys. Like, that's like, in order to prepare the battlefield in Ukraine, he ran psyops for years and continued to for a decade, for 2 decades, on this country in order to soften it up, infiltrate it, run active measures, put fucking dictators in power, and all of that. And you know, so I think really important to see Paul's interview, not just for, you know, what's happening in Ukraine, but what that means for us.
Absolutely. And he has been reporting from Kherson, which is completely being obliterated. If you go to Zarina Zabrisky's feed on Twitter, you'll just see one attack after another. And please watch that episode, because it's profoundly important. And coming from somebody who has seen so much and, you know, been injured and lost, correspondents that he's worked with. He says this is the worst that he's seen, and this is somebody who's been to a lot of front lines. So I encourage people to not look away from what's happening in Ukraine and to put pressure on all of our leaders to continue to support Ukraine. Do we have another clip, Hi-Fi?
We do. Give me 1 second, though, because I wasn't prepared.
Oh,
but
okay.
No, I am.
Thank you.
The biggest one of all was 2 days ago, just before I left. I was packing the car. We're on about the 5th floor. Zarina was upstairs, and there was just an almighty explosion that actually shook the car on its suspension. I dropped the bags I was packing, hit the ground, and there was just a huge orange flash in the sky. And at that point, once I saw the flash, I ran and got into shelter. But Zarina, who was upstairs, the whole flat had rumbled, and she was laying out there. She thought I'd been hit because I'd just dropped my bags on the ground. She could see the bags and thought that was me. And it was a few minutes before we established that I was still alive. And what it was, they'd fired an Iskander 7M missile, I think it was, smack bang into the residential heart of the city.
That's a war crime.
Well, they did a film with our friend Sean Sweeney for Byline Films called Under Deadly Skies, Ukraine's Eastern Front, which documents the multiple war crimes. And the thing that I've been thinking about, you know how we learned from Keir Giles, who wrote Russia's War on Everybody, how Russia missed the Enlightenment, and I feel that we're still living in their dark ages. We know that they have ops and spies and infiltrators in so many countries. We know that we have been infected in millions of different ways, and that we have documentation that they sent scouts to our country before the 2016 election and the years before to target our vulnerabilities. They came up with a theme that purple states would be where they would wage hybrid warfare and active measures. They found out about our racial divides, and they micro-targeted our minds, and it resulted in voter suppression for the 2016 election. And I can tell you right now, I'm talking to people who are in such despair over what is true and what's not, that they don't plan to vote. And I'm doing everything I can to encourage them not to succumb to, basically not voting is a vote for fascism, in my opinion. So I just feel like we've been a target nation of active measures long enough where people should be freaking aware of it by now. And we interview people all the time where the bombs are actually physically dropping. So people in countries, like that understand what's really happening. I don't know why America is so resistant, other than the infection runs deep and there's a lot of money to cover up what's really happening to our minds.
I mean, they use our freedoms against us, right?
Countries that have no freedom, countries that do not have the freedoms that we have, are using our freedoms against us.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what?
So countries like Russia that do not have the freedoms that we enjoy are weaponizing our freedoms against us. Yes. They don't have First Amendment rights. You speak out, you could go to the gulag for 25 years.
They see our freedoms as weaknesses, right? In the same way that they see, the norms of government as a weakness, right? If you just have to take the people out of it, right? If you want to think like a psychopath, you want to think like any of these motherfuckers, Putin, or Flynn, or Musk, or whatever, just try your hardest to think of people as numbers, right? And just imagine anything on the table, any crime, any horror, any atrocity you can imagine, and then just go to town and think of the most crazy fucking shit you could possibly do in order to get your way. And that is the game that they're playing. That's the game. They're literally playing a game where everything is on the table because they think that they have some reason to have all the power instead of everybody else. And it's just a really, really sort of fundamental dynamic that we haven't come to grips with yet. We don't have the imagination it requires to think to ourselves, no shit, would they really manufacture a holy war in the Middle East to distract all of us from Ukraine so that motherfucker over there could start his Russian empire? Would that happen? You're damn right. But most people can't kind of come to grips with it because it seems too fucking evil. It seems too conspiratorial. Well, you've been saying that now for 8 fucking years. Yeah. So maybe it's time for you to think a little different, think a little outside the box, and maybe think about all the times you were fucking wrong for the last 8 years, and see if you can come to a different conclusion.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. It's a bunch of psychopaths who feel that it is in their right and their power, and they are entitled to play God with us.
As Hi-Fi said, they went to supervillain school. What did Zarina tell us? What did Zarina tell us has been happening in the last few weeks while everybody's been looking away from Ukraine? They're literally decimating cities like where she's staying, shelling the shit out of Ukraine. Hi-Fi, you've been quiet tonight. What's on your mind? Oh,
you know how when I say things, I like to put things out there in the zeitgeist and watch what happens. And I'm just going to put this out there. November of 2024 will be a pivotal election for this country and for our reality that we exist in. If people don't show up, if people don't put it down, the average person is doomed. So here's my suggestion to those news people out there, to those politicos out there who are listening. Shortly before the 2024 election, Joe needs to acknowledge the war that we are in. Because here's one thing I know about the American people. And actually it's kind of a global thing, really. When people realize that they've had the wool pulled over their eyes, when they realize they've been duped, they've been taken for a rube, they get their backs up, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like the hair on the back of the neck sticks up, they get angry. And all it takes is for that reality to break through, that we are at war. And as soon as people realize that, there's going to be a backlash.
Yeah, I think it has to start with counter messaging and curiosity, intellectual curiosity. Ann Nelson says to get hyper local because she said there's people around the country that are going up against the school board bullshittery. David Pepper says one thing that's terribly unpopular is the book banning. Like, there are easy things that we can do to fight back.
Speaking of counter messaging and hyper local, right? The messaging on the right, coming from the man, the Antichrist himself, is local action equals national impact, which is a euphemism for terrorizing the country by doing crazy fucking shit, violent or not, on a local level. Literally what he's saying out loud. And so, yeah, the counter messaging to that is, we're going to have to also fight back at the local level. When these
Yeah.
little motherfuckers show up at your school board, you
Yeah.
should show up too.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
we have to get used to confronting this shit because it's going to be a confrontation, right?
Oh yeah.
We are going to have a confrontation that will need to, at least for some period of time, settle this fucking shit up, right?
That's right.
Do we
That's
want to be
right.
bastards or not?
Yeah,
And
that's
so the
right.
question is, do we spread out this confrontation in lots of little ways that don't end up with, millions of casualties, or do we let it all build up and pretend it's politics until God knows what the fuck is going to happen? I'm landing my plane.
Okay.
The 2024 election is very, very important that you vote, but that's 150,000 years from now. You understand me? Like, that is not, yes, vote, but they are trying to prevent you from voting. They're trying to prevent all of us from voting because they do not want a democracy. They do not think you deserve a vote. Act accordingly. Thank you for listening. I'm landing.
No, that's cool. That's cool. You're right. And that's why I'm very concerned about those who are throwing their hands up, because it shouldn't be that hard. We have one party that would like you to live, one party that is trying to kill us, whether it's through their NRA infection and unwillingness to deal with guns, whether it's through radicalization. It seems pretty obvious to me. So John Eastman was found culpable for misconduct by judge teeing up disbarment. I just thought that'd be a happy little thing. And Jim, you know about John Eastman.
I do know about John Eastman.
Why don't you drop some knowledge on us, brother?
Well, he's most famous. He's done a lot of horrible, stupid fucking shit, but he's most famous for a memo that details the overthrow of the U.S. government. And it was sent to Mark Meadows and, amongst a whole bunch of other people. Now, the interesting thing about this document, the Eastman memo, is that it was started on the computer of Christina Bobsky, who was Mike Flynn's lawyer in Afghanistan while he was running around with their prince, and then turned into a Russian agent doing cyber ninjas and shit like that. And now she is under investigation by Jack Smith because she was all up involved in the classified documents shit. So she started the Eastman memo, then went through a whole bunch of people that you guys have heard about, Powell and all fucking, I don't even remember all the goddamn people it went through, whose hands it went through, but it was a lot, including a bunch of CNP people and Ginny Thomas's people and yada yada. And guess who the last person to sign off said, hey, there's a typo, but otherwise, vote. Who did that?
Arrest Mike Flynn.
Arrest Mike Flynn said that shit. Because it was his fucking plan. It was always his plan. So he got the final yes, go ahead and send that shit off into Crazy Sphere. So a bunch of fucking Proud Boys and QAnon people could get all geared up and, ready to protest Bud Light at the Capitol or whatever the fuck they were doing.
Well, yeah. So I was pleased
that one wasn't Bud Light, right?
What's that?
That wasn't Bud Light. That was Big Lie. Sorry.
Yes, that's right. I just do want to say that in more good news, a Russian oligarch close to Putin was arrested in Saint-Tropez for tax fraud. And Marty had a little fun with that and tells us this guy's backstory and connections, which I'm going to report tonight at Betty Dangerous. But it's
I was hoping there would be a window involved, to be honest with you.
You know
you
what?
said Russian oligarch, and I was like, window.
An arrest, allows him to possibly trade up. So we'll see what information might be gleaned because he's very close to.
Maybe there's windows in prison though.
I don't know. So any final thoughts, gentlemen? We got 1 minute left. Anything that you'd like to leave our friends with, aside from getting involved in your democracy and pushing our leaders to support Ukraine and to announce that we've been a target nation of information warfare for, since pre-2016.
High fives, guys. I can tell it's brewing.
It's
brewing.
Don't make it too
has
dark,
to do-
high five. Not too dark though.
No, it's not dark. It's just something to contemplate, and it's probably because I'm really hot.
What?
No fucking
I know,
way.
right?
What?
Could not tell.
Anyway,
You couldn't tell by the beginning of the show. Nah, I'm just kidding. High five. Come on, man. Come on, man.
it has to do with the nature of reality, right?
Ooh,
Every individual experiences reality in their own way, and they see things the way they see things. And we also have a group reality, and that group reality is defined by, rules and laws and physics and things we impose upon ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And what we are facing now are a bunch of unreality merchants who have been flouting our fucking laws, who have been career criminals, money launderers, sex traffickers, arms runners, drug runners. We talked to Jack Bryan, lawyers, drugs, and money.
Yeah.
A lot of recurring characters in that podcast.
very, very cheap at your podcast destination near you. Lawyers, guns, and money. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
So great.
But our reality, our group reality that we've existed in, and I'm not saying the reality we have currently is a great reality. There's a lot of inequalities. There's lots of flaws. Obviously, there's lots of vulnerabilities that can be hacked. Look at what happened, right? But here's the thing about the reality that is America, is we're constantly upgrading it. We're constantly changing it. We're constantly making it better because we're a democracy, because we allow everyone's voice. And if they get their way, it's just going to be their voice, not yours.
Word.